I call James Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It is a pleasure to rise and take a call on behalf of the Green Party in relation to the New Zealand Business Numbers Bill. And quite a pleasure to come back to this bill after some time. When I was on the Commerce Select Committee about a year ago was when this first got introduced to the House. And we have supported this bill the whole way through its process. I think it's really important. There are a number of concerns, I guess, about the implementation of how business numbers will be rolled out. There are a number of concerns about, for example, the previous speaker from the Labour Party, Jacinda Ardern, raised concerns about the exemptions. There are some concerns about the costs that will be imposed in the short term, and have we created a structure that we can soak up those costs to make sure that they're not onerous. There are obviously some outstanding privacy concerns which you have to balance against the ability to hunt down fraud and so on. But none of those concerns would deter us from supporting this as an initiative. And I think it's really important to support the intention of the bill, which is to make things simpler for businesses and trading enterprises. And the last few speakers have spoken in particular about small businesses and the advantages that they may gain from having essentially lower transaction costs with government through use of a business number. But I also wanted to pick up on some of the other forms of trading enterprise. So, you know, this kind of system already exists for limited liability companies in New Zealand, a particular type of companies. And of course, what we're doing here is we're extending out essentially an existing program or a similar program to other forms of trading enterprise. And of course, in New Zealand, there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of trading enterprises that you wouldn't normally think of as businesses, as trading enterprises. So non-profit organisations, some of which trade, you know, a lot of charity shops, people with online presences, social enterprises, organisations that are subsidising non-profit work using commercial models and so on. All of those will now have access to business numbers through this kind of system. So we think that that's really good to start treating different types of trading enterprise in the same way that we have been already treating, you know, your kind of standard meat and potatoes limited liability company. We do note that there are some concerns about privacy, and we have been seeking reassurances during the course of the bill that those go through. I want to acknowledge that there is still some discomfort that having this kind of system in place may enable you know, government agencies to essentially to go into places and to get information that they shouldn't normally be getting. Again, we don't feel that the level of risk there is so high that that would deter us from supporting this bill, but I think it's important that as this gets implemented and that we keep an eye on that and we make sure that any complaints or concerns are addressed and that if there are those sort of complaints that we do take notice of them. And of course that we then, if there are mistakes, we then learn from those mistakes and we improve the implementation as we go forward. One of the concerns, I guess, that we want to keep an eye on, of course, is who is this for? And sometimes, you know, government will launch an initiative and say, well, this is to make things easier for business or for, you know, the public sector or for the community sector or whoever. And then in actuality, what happens is it ends up being for the convenience of government rather than the group that are actually using it. And so again, I think in its early days, as we start implementation here, I think it's really important for us to be very highly tuned into not just the rate of pickup, but the quality of pickup amongst the organisations that are supposed to be using this, and to get a sense of is this actually delivering the value to small business and to other trading enterprises that we say it is, or is actually the value being delivered primarily to government in the form of making it easier for government. One of the specific concerns that I'm really interested in is that in New Zealand there has been a rise in recent years of ghost companies, you know, particularly small traders who set up shop, will run up accounts and bills with clients and suppliers, and then declare bankruptcy, close up shop, and then open up again a few weeks later using a sort of a vague nom de plume, and essentially going back into the same type of activity without, honouring their bills. And one of the things that the Business Numbers Bill may enable, and I think one of the opportunities that we've got, is an ability to start to keep track of what is essentially low-level business fraud. And it has a huge economic cost. We know that there are, hundreds of thousands of sole traders and, tiny little organisations in this country. And the costs to them of trading with someone who is essentially fraudulent, who does not have an intention to honour their bills, is huge. And I get complaints about it all the time as I'm travelling the country, talking to businesses about, what their concerns are. One of the chief things that keeps coming up over and over again is the sense that people are being ripped off by dishonest traders who, because they're able to get away with it, are essentially just closing up shop when they want to. And one of the things that this does is it does give us an opportunity to just start tracking dishonest traders a bit more. So that is one of the reasons why I'm quite personally keen on supporting this bill. So one of the other opportunities, I guess, is this hasn't been set up here, but one of the opportunities here is that what this does is it gives government a one-to-one relationship with pretty much every single trading organisation in the country. And while that's not, in the same way that you should have an inland revenue number, and you should have a one-to-one relationship with the government via inland revenue. What this may enable is an opportunity for business to start offering aggregate services to huge swathes of tiny organisations. One of the bizarre outcomes of the economy that we've created, of course, is that if you work for a large corporate, you probably have, health insurance, you probably have a company car, you're able to access discounts.
I'm sorry to interrupt the honourable member. The time has come for me to leave the chair. Members, this debate is interrupted and set down for resumption next sitting day. And the House stands adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow. Good evening.